So yes, Angela, yeah, I completely understand. The poem was very moving um, in terms of metaphors and memory. And I think you were, I mean, the line about, if you go to bed hungry, your soul will get up and steal cold rice from the pot. Um, I guess, it's the hunger of spirit, right?
Mhm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the fear of losing it too, losing your spirit if something should go amiss. Like, because I don't know if you heard the part where my mom said, if the pot falls on your soul while that's happening, then your soul will be forever separated from your body. I
Yeah.
mean, especially for a writer, what are we without our soul, our memories? What are we without that other layer that's beneath the body or beyond the body?
Well,
So, yeah.
I know that you come from a Catholic background,
Hmm.
as I do. Grandmother used to tell me that they would threaten her, or they would scare the children, like saying that if you don't keep your eyes closed, you'll see the ghosts going up and down.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm of mixed heritage. I'm Filipino, Black, and Irish. So
Oh, wow.
My
Oh,
Irish grandmother was one that was telling,
ah,
telling me, telling me these stories. Um,
yeah. Well, it's all part of being Catholic. And I think because Philippines is about, what, 90% Catholic, there's such a thin veil between this world and the next. And I feel like same with the Irish culture. It's a very, we have a very close affinity to even those who have gone on. And death is just a part of life, right? I mean, I remember going to funerals when I was 4 years old, starting at age 4. It was no secret. It's not sanitized or like kept behind closed doors. It's just part of living. It's just part of our day-to-day life. It's being, being aware of that spirit world.
yeah, yeah, and I guess being perceptive to that. In your poetry, I know that music plays a big part in how you form your poetry and how you hear your poetry. Now, your mother played viol was your father played violin, is that correct? Um,
Yeah.
and your mother played piano. Um,
Hmm.
what was that like, and did that have a direct influence on you becoming a poet? And once you did become a poet, what did they think about it? I mean, did they think that, well, you're wasting your time, just a hobby, get a job as a journalist or a doctor or a lawyer or something? What was their reaction to it?
Well, I guess because they had, a very kind of science-based careers. They were both doctors, but also art played such a huge part in their lives. They played music together. Mom played the piano to dad's violin. Dad listened to music all day long, whether it was classical music or Frank Sinatra or Ray Conniff or
Hmm.
Broadway. So we grew up with music and art and theater, as well as the importance of education and learning and being in a field that would be helpful to humanity and also enough for you to make a living. So those two things kind of hand in hand. And they wanted all of us to be doctors. They said, this is the only stable career you can hope for. This is what you all will be. They would drive us by their university almost, every weekend and say, that's your school. So we were kind of brainwashed, but I was the fourth in the family. We all started in pre-med, and only one of us, the eldest, ended up being a doctor. I was in BS psychology under the guise of, this is pre-med, really, this is pre-med, and eventually I'll go into med school. But I was fascinated with the inner life. I was fascinated with psychology, and I ended up doing a master's in it. And then after the children came, and I had done a little work in counseling, which was my intent. I decided, to stay home. We decided, my husband and I decided I'd stay home, take care of the kids. And I started writing, and I thought, wow, this is really what I want to be doing. I want to be writing. And so I did that. And you asked what my parents thought. I think that initially, they were kind of like, oh, sayang what you studied. Sayang is like, too bad you wasted it. But eventually they were like really proud of me. Like I was surprised. Like when I read for the Willow Books Award, my mom was already sick with Alzheimer's then, but still early stages. And they were in the Philippines. They got up at 3 in the morning to see that live stream. They were there when I did my reading and when it was announced that the book would be published. And that meant so much to me that they would support my writing, knowing that, poetry is not by any means a lucrative career. You and I know that. It's a labor of love. But yeah, I think they were proud of me because part of them, being doctors, they also yearned for that life of the arts. And they kind of vicariously enjoyed it in me, perhaps. I don't know.
So
That's what I'm hoping.
your dad listened to everything from Ray Conniff to Frank Sinatra to show tunes to Broadway tunes to
Yeah, yeah.
which Sinatra song was he fond of?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so a big favorite on both sides of the family was um, "I Did It My Way."
Hmm.
That's Sinatra. That is right. Yeah. Oh
Well,
my God,
Paul Anka wrote it, but Sinatra made. I mean, there were a lot of people that did that
they
song,
covered it. Yeah,
but
everyone
I
covered
think
it.
Sinatra was the one that's most known for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, with that rubato. And did you hear the news about how in the Philippines, the number one song that if you sing it in karaoke, you're most likely to get shots from it? As in, it's actually a lethal thing to sing that song in a karaoke.
So it causes fatalities.
Yes.
You're talking about the Sinatra song, "I Did It My Way."
Yeah, yeah.
Why is that? Do you think?
I think it's because it's for one, it's such a long, repetitive song. It takes forever, and then a lot of people, men especially, love to sing it, and then it's like they just take up so much airtime singing it. So yeah, I would tell my dad, even my father-in-law loves it. Like, be careful with that song.
Well, it is a
Like,
long song. It is, you know, it is a long song, and I know that it has a, you know, a depth and meaning. So that was so that was the one that your father liked.
yeah, yeah, he would listen to that. But he
So
was really more
I mean, you're familiar with the song. You know the words and everything, right?
right. Yeah,
Okay. Can we sing the first few words together? Okay.
okay.
On one is one, two, three. And
And
now
now
the
the
end is
end is
near,
here,
and
and
so
so
I
I face
face
the
the
final.
final curtain.
You have a good voice. You should be singing in karaoke bars.
But you see, I don't want to do that because I don't want to get shot.
Right, yeah. How you know? Consider yourself warned.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, music you know, I noticed that, you know, in your other book, which I haven't been able to read, Blood Orange, there is this tangible, you know, thing, a blood orange. You think of something that's tangible, think something that's moist, wet, something that's tangy, something that, you know, that's on the tongue, that, you know,
Mhm.
that just blooms. Uh, you know, yet that's, you know, that's metaphorical for a lot of things. I think you said that your mother was the storyteller in the house, and she was the
Mhm.
one that was kind of like the life of the home.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
you
definitely.
know, Betty Ann Carino spoke about food in relation to her work. She described in the Philippines, and she's from Tarlac. I think she was from Manila, but grew up in Tarlac. That they had two kitchens. They had a clean kitchen and a dirty kitchen, and
Yeah.
they lived on the farm. You know, talk a little bit about that, because you know these metaphors and images do appear in your work.
Yeah, I was surprised when I completed both books, actually, at the presence of fruit in all of them,
Hmm.
in many of my poems, and the title Blood Orange, of course. What's interesting about the blood orange is it's not endemic to the Philippines. It's not a native fruit, which I consider myself a transplant. I mean, the blood orange was brought even to the US by Spanish travelers, people from Europe and from the Mediterranean. So I feel like same. I was born in Brooklyn, I was brought to Manila, and now here I am moving across the United States. And I feel like a lot of my life as a writer has been influenced by all that moving around. But yes, the relationship to food definitely, like most Filipino families, food equals love, as you know. It's like, kain na tayo, let's eat some more. Come on, you look like you're gonna waste away. Keep eating, and you can't even finish like what's on your plate. You're keeping more on your plate. I was in my best friend's house once for lunch, and her dad was like, in Tagalog, "What's wrong with you? Are you sick that you can't even eat that banana?" So he's like, "Eat the banana." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm there like forcing myself to eat banana after eating a huge plate of rice.
Yeah.
But yeah, food is such a metaphor for love. And my mom loved to cook. And one of her love languages, I guess, was to just cook a meal and invite all our friends, or the opposite. We'd invite our friends because we knew no matter what, if they came over, my mom would cook for them or lay something out. There was just no way that someone would come over and there wasn't anything at the table to serve to them, even
Mm.
if it's just like skyflakes with peanut butter or something. It's really simple.
Well,
There would
talk.
always be merienda.
There's some lines that really kind of popped out at me. The sweetest meat clings to the bone, and
Hmm.
and of your mother, you said that her kisses are guava and rust. Can
Hmm.
you know? Can you talk about one of those lines or both?
Sure. Well, she literally did say the sweetest meat clings to the bone whenever, there would be like, like a piece of like meat that had a bone in it. She would even save the bone and make broth from it because she said that's where the sweetest meat is. And what's interesting is she was a hematologist, and she did a lot of bone marrow transplants, and she would actually do the most painful procedure, like for children who had leukemia. She would have to extract the bone marrow and put in good bone marrow in there. And sometimes I was there in the clinic when she did that. So I really feel like my mom as a life force, like she being a doctor of blood, blood is life. And she was the life of our family. And her all her metaphors about food and feeding us was all about giving life. And that's what she dedicated her life to, both in her career and in her life with us. So in a way, the book and that poem, I think that's in Sundowning, is an homage to her. I had written that and most of the poems in the book when she was starting to fade away with Alzheimer's disease. And I was just trying to preserve what I could of this life force that was just so just confusing to see this very vibrant, vital person becoming just a shell of herself. I mean, still very present physically, but not as vibrant mentally anymore, or even her language, was starting to disappear from us. So yeah, that
You,
was the impetus for the book.
well, you did say, that poetry fills the gaps and creates a new narrative and truths. And I guess as your mother, as her condition worsened, you it prompted you to dig deeper and to get those stories.
Mhm.
While at the same
Yes.
time, I know if you're caring for somebody who is dealing with a condition that severe, that it has a very profound impact um, on you. I think you spoke of your father, recuerdo a mi madre,
Mhm.
her silence and, and explosive. He'd learn to detonate. That you spoke of your father, and I guess
Mhm.
in relation to your mom when she
Mhm.
had that. How um, how do you articulate that? I mean, I guess it's apparent in the poems, but trying to articulate that poetically after going through such a traumatic thing with
Mhm.
your mother. What was the process like in actually getting that down?
Well, in that poem, it's interesting. It's kind of a reversal. The mom is the one who's silent, and the father is detonating, almost like trying to placate or pacify or like remove the power from this bomb. When she was a more like herself, my father was the silent one, and she was always the one talking and dominating conversations at dinner and at parties and the life of the party. And my dad would just be kind of silently standing by. But as she got sicker, it became apparent that my father had to take a more a visible role in the family, and just because she was receding, in terms of her personality, in terms of her voice. And the poems were a way of just explaining that, like how does the family dynamic react to this big shift in family dynamics? How do we all have to compensate somehow, and yeah, that's what these poems grapple with, is how what do we make of this new reality, that almost every year there was a new normal to deal with my mom. Yeah.
You and I actually have something in common. Um, you had spoken or had written that Chicago was pretty, had an impact on you because I
Hmm.
think you wrote Blood Orange when you were in Chicago.
Yes.
Um, I'm in North Carolina. I was named Carl Sandburg home writer in residence. We know that
Oh
Sandburg
wow,
in
that's so
Chicago,
exciting.
yeah, in Chicago,
Congratulations,
being
that's awesome.
Chicago poems and Sandburg and that
Yeah.
connection. So we have that. I know that we definitely have you know have that in common.
Sandberg in common, yes, for sure. Oh, I have a quick anecdote. When I was a student at Warren Wilson, on our day off, we have a day off in the middle of the 10-day residency. A couple of classmates and I decided to take a little drive, and we were going to drive into Asheville, but we took a wrong turn and we went the other way on the freeway instead, and somehow ended up in front of the Carl Sandburg home. It's like, okay, we're not, this is not Asheville. But it was
Yeah.
so cool to see that because two of us were from the Midwest and we were like, yes, Chicago, it has a presence here. But yeah, so did you actually live there when you were, are
Well,
you living there?
I was supposed to because I'm working. I was working on a novel, and I was supposed to move in there, but with COVID
Mhm.
hitting, Governor Cooper, he did an executive order that we're going to shut down all non-essential businesses. So
I
they
see.
ended up shutting it down. So with COVID,
Mhm.
I wasn't able to move in and actually do the residency. They do it in the farmhouse where the Sandbergs had the goat farm.
Oh,
But I ended
wow.
up I only lived like maybe a mile or two away from there, so it was almost kind
Uh-huh.
of like doing it anyway. So part of that residency was doing a series of workshops. So I completed the third and final one, but I'm still going to
Oh,
keep
yeah, I saw that social
contact.
justice workshop. Yeah, that's so awesome.
The social
Yeah.
justice, yeah, I did
Yeah.
that and a couple of other ones. Um, Another thing that was kind of interesting in parallel with some of the other writers, particularly Grace, when she, oh, actually not Grace, but Betty Ann Carino, who is a cookbook author, when she left for the Philippines, I mean, left for the U.S. from the Philippines, her grandfather, it was this like he almost had an omen that he just it was like he knew that they were going to have a difficult time, and he was trying to convey
Mhm.
that message, and she was like, well,
Mhm.
I love you too, Lolo, but we that's where we're going. And I know that
Mm.
in your case, you had been here for a while, and you get a letter from your grandfather.
Oh, right, right, right. That was the poem about the letter that I received a few days after he died. This is my lolo on my mom's side, and he would write us these typewritten letters on that onion skin paper, that
Oh yeah.
can be folded into three, and then it's like you just put a stamp on it, it's ready to go. So he would dictate poems to my tita, who was taking care of him at the time, but they were living in my mom's house. On his deathbed, he was typing a letter to me, and just normal things. Have you eaten dinner, and I hope you're doing well in the US in the cold weather, etc. And it's weird because he had died, and then 3 days later this letter arrives coming from my lolo. It's like, wow, this is like a visit from the other world. But yeah, I have fond memories of him because even as a college student in Manila, he would wait for me to come home to dinner, and he would say, "Are you home now, Iha? Are you here now?" And I'd say, "Yes, I'm here now." And we'd sit down to eat dinner. And so that's meant so much to me. And those were some of the last memories I had before moving to the States. Because unlike, were you born here in the U.S., Tony?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so unlike you, I was a full-fledged adult when I moved to the US. So there were a lot of like strings, a lot of like leave takings, and I feel like I've left a lot behind. And that was one of the last, was my memory of my logo, having dinner with me, every night when I'd come home from school.
I mean, it was a beautiful memory, and we're going to have to wrap up in a minute, but I am so glad that we had a time to talk, and it's really beautiful finally meeting you. Angela Narciso-Torres. This is her wonderful chapbook. It's called To the Bone. Remember, the sweetest meat clings to the bone. And if you could do us a favor here, if you could read us, take us out with a poem.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I will read to you one of the self-portraits. There are three self-portraits here. I'll read self-portrait as Rosary reads.
Okay, what page is that on?
That's on page 8.
Page 8. Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Self-portrait as Rosary beads. Curled amid lint and loose change, tucked in a jacket's satin lining or crushed with used gum in seams of blue denim. I've known pain clinics and airports, taxicabs and stale schoolrooms where time is a honeycomb in winter. I am olive wood, carnelian, plastic, black onyx. I'm rosebuds pressed into fragrant spheres. Your heat is my musk, your worry, my fire. Pick your mystery. If Tuesday, sorrowful. If Saturday, glorious. I've held you in grocery lines, picket lines, the hours between sleepless and woken. Hold me. I am glass, shattered, smoothed by my mother's nerves, pillowed beneath her cheek. Counted, accountable, counting, counted on. Crystallized, dangled on a string or hung from a mirror in a river of traffic, praying for green, for an end, for a mutiny of rain. Litany of sorrows, of praise. I'm a crown of roses, a crown of purple thorns. I'm faithful as breadcrumbs on barbed wire. Lose me to birds or to night's starred thicket. Touch and be splintered, sundered, soothed, surrendered. My scent on your fingertips.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Again,
Thank you.
the poetry collection chapbook is called To the Bone by Angela Narciso-Torres. And she's also the author of Blood Orange by Willow Books. This is published by Sundress Publications,
That's
and
right.
it's an chapbook series runner-up in the 2019 Sundress Publications chapbook contest. Again, thank you so much for being with us on Triple P People's Poet Podcast. Beautiful poetry, and please leave us with how people who want to get in touch with you or know more about your work, if you have a website, how they can take a look at that.
Sure. My website is angelanarcisotorres.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter by the same name, so you can find me there. Thank you so much, Tony. It's been a pleasure.
Sure, no problem, and wonderful to have you. I mean, just some really wonderful lines. I mean, a bud that will not bloom is called a bullet. That really hit me. But again, thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button. Be sure to wear your mask and the social distance. And if you haven't voted, damn it, get out there and vote, because this is a real important election. Much love to you and your family, your husband and your kids out in Cali. Angela, much love to you. Thank you so much. And till next time, take care, be safe, and social distance, please. Take care.